I believe that the future of AMP is still very bright, and 20 cents, that's still my price target for this bull run. That's not financial advice. However, when I take a look at the price of AMP, I get why some people may be thinking, oh wow, this is bad. Take a look at the price pullback. But when I take a look at originally, when I first started talking about AMP, it's actually done pretty well in the grand scheme of things. However, again, I still do believe that the future, there's still ways to go there, because if it's doing this as of right now, imagine, let's say, as March goes on, April, May, June, July, I think that pullbacks are only normal, and I think the general direction, especially moving forward, could very well be upwards. Now, people may think that, okay, it's impossible because AMP, it doesn't have the hype, it doesn't have the cool factor, it's not a meme coin, it's not an AI project. And here's the thing, those projects, they're going to have their place, but I think something like AMP is also going to have its place moving forward, because when you take a look at it, at its core, it's actually very wonderful. And let me explain, because AMP, it was actually created by Flexa and Consensus. Flexa is a crypto payments company, and Consensus is a blockchain development enterprise. Now you may be thinking, okay, why was it even launched in the first place? It's because the original Flexa coin smart contract could not be upgraded to meet the new demands that Flexa was looking for. And by the way, shortly before AMP was launched, Flexa actually, launched an app called SPEDN, which allowed users to pay at thousands of merchants using various cryptocurrencies, also, stable coins. So this is how amazing SPEDN is. Now, just as an example as to how amazing SPEDN is and how this all works, let me explain real quick, because, let's say, I want to buy, a product at a store, at a merchant, let's say, using a cryptocurrency through the SPEDN app. Let's say when I do this, this transaction, it may take quite a while in some cases. However, that's not really a big problem. The bigger problem is that if, let's say, the transaction fails for whatever reason, or if the crypto prices are falling, then of course, that could be disastrous, right? In the case of the merchant, because what happens if this person makes a purchase using a cryptocurrency and the crypto space is going down? What happens if they get a lower amount? Or let's say they make a purchase and then this merchant, they never get their, payment, quite essentially. And then this person already made the payment. What happens, right? So this is where AMP really steps in, because take into consideration how when a purchase is made, in this case, right, through the SPEDN app, what happens? An amount of AMP that is slightly worth more than the transaction is temporarily locked up into a special smart contract. Now, the reason for that is, again, if let's say the crypto prices are falling, or if let's say, for whatever reason, the transaction fails, because there could be a failure. Think about how there could be a chain halt, there could be a hard fork, right? So again, this is where the app steps in, and it quite essentially acts as somewhat of a collateral, in my opinion, in a sense that it's going to ensure that the merchant is going to get their entire payment regardless of whatever happens, right? In a case where it fails, let's say. So this is the beauty about AMP. Now, people may be thinking, okay, where's this AMP coming from? And this is coming from users who are staking their AMP through payment providers that Flexa has partnered up with. So I think this whole operation is very wonderful. Now, people may be thinking that, okay, you say this, however, what happens if transactions keep failing and then let's say, things end up becoming a complete disaster, or this locked up AMP keeps getting sold because the transactions are failing? Now, allegedly, there has never been a case like that, to my understanding. So when people like to say, well, what happens if a transaction fails? Now, theoretically, it could. However, it hasn't happened yet, to my knowledge. Now, granted, again, if let's say even like 10 transactions per day were to fail, just because we see so many transactions per day going on, it wouldn't even really make a difference. If anything, in my opinion, it would be so minuscule because it's not enough to cause, any sort of issues. Now, again, allegedly, no failure has ever happened when it comes to a transaction. So I highly doubt there's going to be thousands upon thousands of failed transactions per day where just AMP keeps getting sold because these transactions are failing. That's really difficult, in my opinion, to see. Maybe, let's say, even as a worst case, like 10 or 20 a day, that wouldn't even really matter. So that's why I don't think that this is going to be bad either way I view it. And yeah, I just don't think AMP is really going to have this doomsday sort of device, if that makes sense. And sometimes, in some cases, people often underestimate the market that Flexa is focused on. But think about this, right? The global crypto payment gateway market is predicted to be worth over $90 billion by 2028. So that's massive right there. It clearly shows that the market still has a bright future ahead. However, keep in mind, AMP and Flexa, they're actually two separate technologies, but I still do think it's relevant nonetheless. And people like to say that, okay, the adoption when it comes to SPEDN isn't the best. They say that Flexa isn't really that popular. But in the world of cryptocurrencies, people don't really care, at least as of right now, about adoption too much. They care about perceived adoption. And when they take a look at something like this, I think they view it as, hey, this could be something that has good hypothetical potential, because think about SPEDN. I think it's only going to continue to grow because, of course, people nowadays, they're beginning to like cryptocurrencies. Many people are beginning to understand how amazing it is. Not to mention, you take a look at when it comes to the sheer amount of crypto owners, back in the peak of the 2021 bull run, there was roughly only around 300 million. Now there's over 600 million according to Crypto.com research. You can really see the trajectory there when it comes to the amount of crypto owners just increasing by quite a significant amount. It's pretty much double when compared to the peak of the 2021 bull run as of right now. So just imagine as the months, as the years go by, of course, naturally, these people, some of them do want to make some payments, at some merchants using cryptocurrencies. They could use something like SPEDN. Now, of course, am I saying that SPEDN is going to be the only one who's doing this? No, of course. However, in my opinion, this is very amazing. And the amazing thing about Flexa is this, right? You got to think about how crypto payments with Flexa are automatically converted into whichever fiat the merchant wants. And the amazing thing about this is that many other payment providers out there, or crypto payment services, I would say, they don't really do this, right? So the fact that, again, Flexa can do that, that's the special, unique advantage that it has. I'm not necessarily saying Flexa is going to be number one of all time, but the fact that they could do that, that's very wonderful. So the way I view it is that AMP really has this good backing, quote unquote, in a sense. Not to mention, I think Flexa is wonderful. I think SPEDN has a bright future ahead. So I don't see why this is bad. Either way, take a look at it. And again, reaching the price of 20 cents, I really don't see why not. If it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $17 billion. That's not even 50%, give or take, of Shiba Inu's all-time high market cap, let alone Dogecoin, which at one point back in 2021 reached over $80 billion in market cap. So I just don't see why this is too much to ask for. You got to consider the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, the number of institutional investors, the amount of enterprise adoption. And also, much like I mentioned earlier in the video, the amount of crypto owners as of right now just through the roof. And why could 2025 this year be so special? It's because if you take a look at it, historically speaking, altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they usually peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. 18 months from the last Bitcoin halving event, which happened back in April of last year, would actually mean around October this year. Now, things could always happen a little bit earlier, a little bit later. We just never really know because it's just more so of a gauge, so to speak. History isn't always going to repeat itself. But I think it does give a good benchmark. And I think, if anything, it showcases how AMP still has a ways to go. Not to mention, you take a look at Charles Hoskinson, who not only is the co-founder of Ethereum, but the founder of Cardano. He does predict that, based on a video that he was a part of back in November last year, in the next 1 or 2 years, he said that he could very well see Bitcoin reaching anywhere between $250,000 all the way up to $500,000. Now, if let's say we assume his best case scenario timeline, so a year from then, which is November this year, and worst case scenario price target for Bitcoin, 250,000, if let's say that were to happen, I'm not guaranteeing this, but let's say in a make-believe scenario, if Bitcoin were to reach $250,000 in November this year, could you imagine what happens to AMP? 20 cents at that point may seem a little bit bearish. And again, I think, if anything, Charles's prediction here really does give a good sign, in a sense that 2025 could be a very special year. Now, people may think that, okay, let's say around October, November, that's still a while from right now, but keep in mind, if people have been waiting ever since 2021, or maybe even longer, this is kind of like peanuts. Even if they waited ever since like 2022 or 2023, it doesn't seem that bad anyways. I feel like the marathon is still there. I still think the finish line is somewhat a ways away, but I feel like we're in this 8-mile point and the finish line is like 10 miles. So it would make no sense for me to give up. I want to hypothetically see my prediction become a reality if it were to do so, which is why, again, I don't want to give up right now. I'm still dollar cost averaging, so any terminal income, acquiring, holding, and just waiting, because I think brighter days are ahead. And again, 20 cents for AMP wouldn't surprise me whatsoever during this bull run. And make sure to subscribe if you gained value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch you all on the next one. I'm a peace. Bye.